The European Union or EU Parliament elections occur every 5 years and are conducted to select members of the European Parliament, so-called MEPs, who represent the citizens of the EU member states. The next election will be in June 2024. The exact dates may vary slightly from country to country, but generally EU Parliament elections take place over several days in late May to early June. Citizens of EU member states who are 18 years old or above are eligible to vote in the EU Parliament elections. This time it's down to 16. Additionally, citizens of EU member states living in another EU country have the option to vote either in their home country or in their country of residence. Political parties and individual candidates can run for election. Parties often put forward lists of candidates which may include prominent figures, current MEPs or new faces. Months before the election, political parties across EU member states start preparing their campaigns. They develop their platforms, select candidates, and establish strategies to attract voters. Candidates often engage in public debates, rallies, and media appearances to promote their agendas and gain support. Each EU member state manages its voter registration process. Citizens must ensure they are registered to vote either in their home country or in their country of residence if they are living in another EU member state. Registration deadlines vary by country but are usually a few weeks before the election. In my home country, everyone is automatically registered. EU Parliament elections typically take place over a few days, as I said, usually from Thursday to Sunday, to accommodate various voting preferences and work schedules. Voting can occur in polling stations, by postal vote, or in some cases through electronic voting systems. EU member states use different voting systems, including proportional representation, closed list systems, or a combination of proportional representation and constituency-based representation. In PR systems, seats are allocated to parties based on the proportion of votes they receive. Some countries set a threshold for parties to enter parliament, ensuring representation for only those parties that meet a minimum vote share. The total number of seats in the European Parliament is determined by the Lisbon Treaty. Currently, there are 705 seats distributed among EU member states based on their population. Each country has a fixed number of seats, but this can change slightly over time due to changes in population or in EU enlargement, or Brexit changed that as well. After voting ends, ballots are counted and results are tallied. This process may take several hours or days depending on the size of the electorate and, of course, the complexity of the individual voting system. Once results are finalized, the allocation of seats to parties and candidates is determined and elected MEPs are identified. MEPs represent the interests of EU citizens and participate in the legislative process of the EU. They work in committees, vote on legislation, and represent their constituents' views in debates and, of course, also in discussions. Newly elected MEPs convene to form the European Parliament. They organize into political groups based on shared ideologies or party affiliations. The European Parliament elects its president, vice presidents, and committee chairs from among its members, of course. The European Parliament plays a crucial role in shaping EU policies and legislation. MEPs collaborate with other EU institutions, such as the European Commission and the Council of the European Union, to enact laws and regulations that impact the lives of EU citizens. Of course, there are different political parties in the Parliament, and the composition of political parties in the European Parliament can be complex due to the diversity of member states and their respective political landscapes. However, there are several main political groupings that represent a broad spectrum of ideologies and interests, and that's why I have some of the key political groups included in this video. We have the European People's Party, or EPP. They are center-right to Christian Democratic, and they are the largest political group in the European Parliament at the moment. It includes parties such as the German CDU-CSU, the French Republicans, and the Spanish People's Party. Then we have the Progressive Alliance of Socialists and Democrats, the S&D. They are center-left to social democratic. They are the second largest political group in the European Parliament. They include parties such as the German SPD, the British Labour Party, until Brexit, and the French Socialist Party. And then we have Renew Europe. They are formerly Alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe, the former ALDE. They are centrist to liberal, and they represent liberal and centrist parties advocating for individual freedoms and market-oriented policies. They include parties such as the German FDP, the Dutch Democrats 66, the French La République En Marche from Macron, for example. And then we have the European Greens and European Free Alliance. They are center-left to environmentalists, but also to regionalists. They are advocates for environmental sustainability, social justice, and regional autonomy. They include green parties and regionalist parties, such as the German Greens, the French Europe Ecology, the Greens, and various regionalist parties. And then we have the European Conservatives and Reformists, the ECR. They are center-right to conservative. They are a Eurosceptic-leaning group advocating for conservative values, national sovereignty, and EU reform. They include parties before Brexit, the British Conservatives, the Polish Law and Justice, the PiS, and the Czech Civic Democratic Party. And then there's the Identity and Democracy, the ID. They are far-right to nationalist. They are Eurosceptic and a nationalist group advocating for stricter immigration policies, national sovereignty, and anti-EU sentiments. They include parties such as the Italian Lega Nord, the French National Rally, and the German Alternative for Germany. And there's the confederal group of the European United Left, or the Nordic Green Left. They are left-wing to far left. They represent socialist, communist, and other left-wing parties advocating for social justice, workers' rights, and anti-capitalist policies. They include parties such as the German Left, the Greek Syriza, and the Spanish Podemos. And we have the non-inscrits. MEPs who do not belong to any of the political groups are included there. They may include independent MEPs or members of smaller parties that do not meet the criteria for forming a political group in Parliament. And these are the main political groupings in the European Parliament, but the landscape may shift with each election as new parties emerge, alliances form, or existing parties change their affiliations, or parties leave because their country is not in the EU any longer. Overall, the EU Parliament elections are a crucial democratic process in the European Union, allowing citizens to have a direct say in the composition of the EU's legislative body, one of those, and shaping the direction of EU policies and decision. And if you want to know more, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.